Hey everybody, this is Richard with BlueSheepdog.com. I'm just coming to you real quick. I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the current voluntary recall on Glock Gen4 pistols. Glock announced, I believe it was going to be yesterday, which would be September 6th, that they were going to do a voluntary replacement of all of the recoil spring assemblies on Generation 4 Glock pistols. Those are going to be the pistols that have the interchangeable back straps and the new recoil spring assembly, the new texture and whatnot. Anyhow, they have announced that they're going to do a voluntary exchange on all the recoil spring assemblies. Now, they're not saying why they're doing this other than just kind of some general terms that they're doing this to make sure that their pistols are performing reliably to their specifications or whatever. So they're not addressing any specific problems, but it is for all Generation 4 Glocks that were made starting from several years ago forward through July 22nd, 2011. The only Generation 4 Glocks not included are the Glock 26 and the Glock 27. Those are the baby Glocks or the subcompact Glocks in 9mm and 40. Everything else is going to be subject to these new recoil spring assemblies. Not sure exactly, since Glock isn't coming out and saying what prompted them to do this. However, I do know that ever since they started shipping the pistols, there have been some sporadic complaints of reliability issues. Most of the reliability issues I've seen have been with the 9mm pistols, the Glock 17, the Glock 19. And there was a lot of thought at that time that the new recoil springs that were in the Generation 4 pistols maybe were a little too strong, and that standard pressure 9mm ammo just was not, just didn't have enough momentum to properly actuate the slide. I don't know if that's true. Certainly, nobody at Glock is probably going to come out and tell me. If there is somebody from Glock that's listening and they want to give me a call, certainly feel free to do that. Go by BlueSheepdog.com and drop me a note. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I do know that in the third generation Glock pistols, there was some concern with the 40 caliber round and certain loads of 40 caliber. I think a lot of them, they were having some problems with the 165 grain 40 calibers when there was a flashlight mounted. There was a number of departments that had some serious issues, and I think it was Milwaukee PD probably had one of the biggest issues. And of course, Glock never, that I'm aware of, came out and addressed it head on. I do know that they dealt with some departments, giving them magazine replacements, new magazine springs, that type of thing. But I don't know that they ever came out in public and addressed it head on. But there was a lot of speculation that with the Gen 4 Glock pistols, the new recoil spring assembly was supposed to address that. And maybe it has with the 40 caliber and there's a problem with the 9mm. Maybe there is something else entirely going on. I don't know. However, if you have a Generation 4 Glock pistol, you definitely want to check this out. And if you are eligible for the new recoil spring assembly, you probably want to go ahead and get it. It's, I'm sure, going to do nothing but enhance the reliability of your pistol. Certainly, if your department carries Glocks, you may want to talk with your armorers, make sure they're aware of this. I know Glock sent out a memo to Glock armorers, and they actually included a recoil spring assembly identification chart with that, so you can identify based on the numbering system on the recoil spring assemblies which part number you're going to need, and if your Glock falls under this this voluntary exchange program. They're not calling it a recall, but a voluntary exchange is in fact a recall. They apparently have recognized there's a problem, and they're willing to upgrade everyone for free to fix it. So anyway, again, this is Richard with BlueSheepdog.com. Thanks a lot, and stay safe.